Welcome to this video. Today's video will be, what if Deku had a rabbit quirk? So in this story of events, Izuku's father would be Raiten Midoriya. He would be the number 17 pro hero known as Air Step because he has the ability, essentially, he can propel large amounts of wind, like insane amounts of wind, from his legs, essentially allowing him to fly or step through the air, as his name suggests. So, and his mother would be Mirko, the number 5 hero. Mirko would be able, well, you should pretty much know what Mirko's quirk is, but I'll give you the rundown. Enhanced senses, great hearing, insane strength, animal-like instincts, and there's a lot more. So Izuku's quirk would be a pretty overpowered leg-based quirk. Izuku, at the age of 4, his legs would be giant. His sprinting speed would be impressive, better than most adults. Izuku would be pretty buff at the moment, as he would also be training along with his genetics being great. Essentially, Izuku would be at school and he would be playing on the slides, let's say, and Bakugo would walk up to them and he would say, "Guess who finally got his quirk?" As Izuku would respond with, "Still can't beat me. You know, I'm way stronger than you." As Bakugo would flare his explosions before going in with a punch. Izuku, seeing this, he would kick Bakugo's hand away, and the amount of wind pressure that would come from his foot would essentially almost break Bakugo's arm just from the pure force of the kick, with it not even landing. As Bakugo would be sent flying, and so would Deku, because the knockback was that great. Teachers would rush out of the classrooms as they would see both Izuku and Bakugo sitting on the floor, with Bakugo holding his arm and looking as if he was in agony. I mean, the pain was great, and he's also just a 4-year-old, and yeah, so Izuku would be, his Mirko would actually be called, but she wouldn't pick up, so it would be Izuku's father. I'm forgetting his name already that I made up, but yeah, his dad comes in and he takes him to the quirk doctor immediately, as they would see his quirk, jet hair. So Izuku is able to he basically has insane kick power. So basically, if he can essentially just fly like his dad, along with some of the powers from Mirko, he can run on the air, like he's OP. And Izuku would actually be very happy at this. With him starting to do squats in the doctor's office, as he was that excited to start using his quirk. And instead of taking the car ride home, Izuku's dad would begin to say, "I call this Sky Strider. Now follow me." As they would begin to essentially just start flying by kicking the air as hard as they can. And Izuku would be very good at this off the bat, surprisingly, as his father would be honestly very surprised. And they would just carry their car home with them both being very strong. It would be kind of a struggle for the both of them, but they'll be able to do it. So as they would get home, Izuku would go to Daytona Beach, as he would just start kicking all the trash, kicking it into the stratosphere, where, like, I'm not even kidding, he would start kicking trash up to the clouds and it would fall back in front of him. That's how powerful his kicks are. So there will be a time skip to the 10-month training arc. No, there will be a time skip to when Izuku's in the 7th grade. No, Izuku's in the 8th grade. Yeah, alright. So Izuku's in the 8th grade, and Mirko and his dad are going out to eat at a... No, he's going out to watch Mirko and his dad perform on a mission. They would essentially be just tracking down All for One. And Izuku would be in the car watching this, as Mirko would have to fight against one of the testing Nomus, as there would be an incident where Mirko is absolutely getting mollywopped. I mean, the Nomu, she had no chance against that thing. As Izuku is seeing this, even though they told him at any point, do not get out of the car until they come back, he had to. He could not sit there and endure this. So Izuku would get out the car and he would put on a little mask thing that he'd been working on. Now, let me say this. In this story, Izuku is kind of cocky, like Bakugo type of person, but he's also super smart. So he had created this little, these gadgets and a mask to put on to, go fight crime in the middle of the night. So Izuku would put this little mask on, and it would honestly look pretty cool. It's like the vigilante Deku thing. So he would go in there and he would charge at the Nomu, kicking it straight in the face, sending it flying at least 200 meters. And he would essentially just begin to charge at the Nomu and kick it and kick it and kick it. His fighting style would basically be like... Let me explain. So he would, as the Nomu's on the floor after one of his kicks, he would kick it up straight into the air before jumping and kicking with both of his legs straight to the face of the Nomu, as this would basically be his ultimate attack, and he would do this over and over and over again. As Izuku would then reach the conditions to activate one of his gadgets. So basically, when Izuku has lots of sweat, the gadget collects it and it forms into, let's say, sort of a blade, because all the concentrated sweat and the wind pressure essentially just makes it solid and it's sharp. So his kicks would start to cut through the air, slicing the Nomu up. And at this point, the Nomu's already getting worn down, as this is not a full completed version of it. So it doesn't have most of its quirks. But Izuku would slice at the brain of the Nomu, thinking maybe that is its weakness, as it would not regenerate anymore and essentially just decay away. As Mirko and his dad would come up to him being pretty mad because he was not supposed to come out the car, but kind of proud of him. But they would be pretty much in trouble for him using his quirk. So as they would go back home, Mirko and his dad would inform the Heroes Association that they finished the mission, found out they're making mutations to defeat All Might with lots of quirks, and they pretty much got the gist of what they were supposed to do. So now we have the sludge villain incident, where Izuku would be walking home. In this story, this would be his normal route that he takes, and he would be walking through this tunnel. It's kind of eerie, as the sewer cap would open, right behind Izuku, saying, "I didn't know that freak was in town. You're my real hero, kid." As Izuku would see this, recognize him as a villain, and kick straight at him, making the sludge villain splatter into pieces as much as he would when All Might used Texas Smash on him. As All Might would appear, and he would be like, "I am here." Huh? As he would see the sludge villain already taken care of, and this buff kid with giant legs walking off. And he would be like, "Hey kid, you take care of that villain right over there?" And Izuku would say, "Yeah, he was pretty weak." As All Might would begin to say in his mind you, "This kid's pretty strong." As All Might would ask Izuku, "Hey kid, what's your quirk?" As Izuku would say, "Jet hair." As All Might would say, "Wait a minute, I recognize you from somewhere. You must be... Oh, you're the son of Airstep and Miracle, aren't you?" As Izuku would say, "Yep." And All Might would ask, "Remind me, what exactly is your quirk?" Izuku would begin to tell him the gist of it and how he can basically fly and use concentrated wind pressure to cut through the air and also dash at incredibly high speeds with, what's it called? He can essentially condense sweat, yeah. So yeah, he made a gadget, so I already explained this about the sweat condensing, and then it's a blade, yeah, alright, that. And then All Might would be like, "Oh, that's a pretty powerful quirk, kid." As he would turn into his unbuff form, his skinny form, as Izuku would be like, "What's that about? Look like my dad." As All Might would laugh it off, and he would be like, "It all happened 12 years ago." And he would explain to him how he got injured, and then he would show him the scar and all that. And Izuku would be like, "Oh, must have hurt pretty bad, huh?" And All Might would be like, "Yeah, it did." So he would tell Izuku that he could have one for all. And Izuku would refuse, saying, "I want to be my own hero, not like my mom or my dad, and definitely not like you." As he would walk off, and All Might would basically just be thunderstruck. I mean, the way that kid just disrespected him and his parents in such a calm tone, he could never. As Izuku would get home and tell Raiten, is that his name? Oh my god, I caught grip of his name. I could not figure out his name the entire video. He told Raiten and Mirko how he met All Might that day. As they would be like, they would listen to a story, and they would all be like, "That's pretty cool. Not as good as us though." And he definitely would be a lot better than both of them. But Deku's definitely gonna sugarcoat it. And they would skip to the 10-month training arc. And that's essentially it. I mean, I don't really need to cover his training. Or do I? Nah. Well, he would just go to Daytona Beach and practice kicking, I guess. I mean, what other abilities? He could practice rapid fire stuff and like his speed and just all that stuff. I mean, his quirk is pretty straight up with no crazy abilities. He can just kick really hard and fly. That's basically it. So we're gonna get into the entrance exam. So Deku would pass the written exam with flying colors. I mean, he is super smart. And then he would go on to the robot portion of the exam. So, excuse me. We get into the part where President Mike's like, there's no countdowns in a real battle. Go, go, go! As Izuku would dash off faster than everyone, even Tenya, Ida, Bakugo, and Todoroki. As he would be dashing, in about 2 seconds, he was already like 100 meters in, and he had already destroyed about 4 pointers. And he would start stacking up robot points. He would simply kick at them, and their heads would be blown off just by the wind pressure. This man would just be, it was light work for him. He would not even break a sweat doing this, as it's about 2 minutes in, he's already gotten at least 100 robots, as the ground would begin to shake. It would be the 0-pointer, and he would look at that thing and be like, finally, a real challenge, as Izuku would hear a scream, and he would think, that girl's stuck under that rock. I don't feel like saving her, but that would get some real rescue points over there. As he would begin to blitz over to Araka, pulling the rock off her for winking at her, and then punching the robot, the 0-pointer, and it wouldn't really do that much. It would get it unbalanced a little before doing a double foot kick straight to the face of it after jumping up in the air and basically flying. He would send the 0-pointer straight 6 feet under, and I'm not playing about that. The 0-pointer would literally indent into the ground about 6 feet deep. As the hero exam would finally come to an end, and Izuku, let's say he got a record of 189 hero points with the additional rescue points. So he would go home, wait for the acceptance letter, and once he finds out he got in, he would celebrate with Inko. Sorry, not Inko. He would celebrate with Mirko and Raiten. Now a week later, classes would begin, and he would walk into class to see Bakugo, of course, sitting there. And he wouldn't really pay much attention to Aizawa, as he's not really worried about him, as he knows he's a Razorhead, but he can't cancel his quirk, as it's a mutation type quirk. Put it this way, Izuku's not scared of anybody by any degree. So, as he would sit down in the back of the class, Aizawa would wake up and he would say, "It took you 5 seconds to quiet down. That's pretty good, but that's still not gonna cut it here." As he would say, "Throw these on and come outside." As everybody would put on their uniforms, and Izuku's would actually not fit, because this man is that buff. And his size that he put in, like for what size he needed for the uniform, he had already grown that much since he had done that. So this man would have to actually put on his hero costume. No, not his hero costume. This man would just have to go out with a regular smegular shirt. As they would follow Aizawa outside, and Aizawa would toss the ball to Izuku, and he would say, "Throw this as far as you can." As Izuku would look at him and say, "Are kicks allowed?" and he would nod his head. So Izuku would then he would hold the ball right above his foot, as he wouldn't even need to cock it back to any degree. He would then just he would kick it with the inside of his foot right before it hit the ground, as it would be a direct hit. Almost like when you have a driver and you have a golf ball and it's like the perfect hit, it would be like that. So he would kick the ball and the ball would straight up explode. And he would need another ball, and Izawa would say, maybe you should throw it. As Izuku would throw it and then kick right after, and there would be lots of wind propulsion carrying the ball forward. And Bakugo got 750 in the original. We're going to say Izuku got 1,800 meters. Yeah. For the remainder of the test, Izuku would begin to dominate everybody. He would end up at first place, outshadowing even Momo, Yaoyorozu, and Todoroki. As the last period of the day would start, the entire class would all be thinking, hey, when's Aizawa gonna come back? As, they would just hear, I am here, walking in like a normal person. As All Might would appear and everyone would be just like, All Might! And we would start the hero versus villain trials. I honestly do not know what it's called. I'm just gonna call it combat trials or something. But for the first match, instead of Izuku and Araka, we would actually have Izuku and Kaminari. As Kaminari will be so grateful that he's on Deku's team, as they would be going against Bakugo and Kirishima. So as the match would begin, Deku would just rush in, speed blitzing to the room that they were on, and with Kaminari on his back. As they would get to the room, Kaminari would zap Kirishima. Kirishima would harden so it would not affect him. As Izuku, seeing this, he would know he had a weak point, because right after he hardens, if he went back to his original state, Izuku just punched him square in the face, sending him flying back. As Bakugo would try to charge an explosion, Izuku would dodge at kicking his leg, fracturing it, completely destroying Bakugo's leg, and they would eventually just touch the bomb. As the team didn't even have enough time to react. The match was over in about 30 seconds. As All Might would say, Hero Team wins! As we now begin the USJ incident. So, all the students would take the bus to USJ, and Pro Hero 13 would make their boring speech, as there would be this portal and villains would start coming out, and Kaminari would be like, whoa, you guys have fake villains too? And Aizawa would say, those are real villains, get ready. As everyone who would end up being teleported in the original would be teleported to where they got taken to. So it would be Zuko getting teleported in the water, and Tsuyu, quote unquote, saving him and pulling him out the water. Well, actually, she would try to and not be able to. So Izuku would just start running on the water before picking up speed and then running on the air using air step. And he would just essentially smash down with both feet, diving, kind of like let's just say he's above one of the villains in the water, and he just dives down with both feet on top of the villain's back, and the villain just gets, his back gets broken, and his ribs probably, like a couple of his ribs probably got broken, and a couple of ligaments, as that he was taken care of, and Izuku would be like, 4 more to go, as he would just start kicking in the water, which would cause so much water pressure that the villains would be sent outside of the water into Izuku's own domain, and that's when he would start using rapid fire kicks, dashing at villains, kicking them one by one, and in total he would have taken out about 20 villains. Then he would put Suyu and Mineta on his back, carrying them back to Aizawa's area. As he would see the Nomu, he would think, this thing looks like fun. And he would say, hey, you over there, come at me. As the Nomu would turn its attention to Deku before rushing at him. Izuku would kick the Nomu, making it fall to the ground before kicking it in his head. This would send it flying, almost cracking its skull and getting to his brain, but it was not just quite, as he would regenerate instantly. And Deku would say, hey Aizawa, use your quirk on him. As Aizawa would cancel all the Nomu's quirks, and Deku would essentially jump up in the air, taking the Nomu with him, before spinning around, grabbing him, and slamming him into the ground head first, destroying the Nomu. All Might would arrive just in time to see this giant display of strength by Izuku. He thinks not even he would have thought of that, and he would have just punched it until his brains poured out, or his insides poured out, or he would have punched it into the sky. But All Might will digress from that, and we would wrap up the USJ incident, and school would be canceled for about 2 weeks, and would re-begin after 2 weeks. So then they would start the UA Sports Festival. So the cavalry battle, Izuku was just rushing through with so much speed, and everyone would be targeting him. So no one would have ended up being on his team, or no one would want to be on his team. And those who were unlucky, because they would have get tagged. But Izuku, he would not. He would just begin to jump in the air, blitz through, tagging people, and it would be over. Now we have the race. Izuku would obviously win this race easily. He would dash about 50 miles per hour. Yeah, that's how fast he would run. He would run at about 50 miles per hour at his top speed, and essentially his top speed would not actually be like the fastest he could go. If he uses all of his wind pressure and air pressure, he can run at about 75 miles per hour, but it takes a lot of energy and he barely uses it. So let's just say he gets first place and ends up finishing the race super fast. Now, the 1v1 battles. Deku would obviously face off against Shinso, and Deku, being who he is in this version, would not even wait for Shinso would begin to try to talk to Izuku, saying it must be so good having such a powerful quirk. But before he could even finish this, Izuku would have already blitzed him before punching him in the face, sending him off the platform in one blow. And the battle would be over. He would move on to his battle with Todoroki. As soon as the match begun, Izuku would fly in the air, dodging Todoroki's ice Before diving down, kicking with both feet at Todoroki's head, he would make an ice barrier, but it would barely do anything. His feet would break through so much wind pressure, Todoroki would tumble over, getting a full-on blow to the stomach, making him cough up blood and be knocked out instantly. The crowd would go crazy as we would advance to the Bakugo fight. As soon as the round would begin, Deku would charge in at Bakugo, his muscles moving faster than almost a car. He would begin to tackle Bakugo before punching him and kicking him straight off the platform. He would use his explosions to keep his composure. What did I just say? He would use his explosions to keep his balance. Yeah. So Bakugo would then charge in at Deku before saying, "Get over here, Deku!" Charging an explosion, sending it right at Deku's face, Deku dodging out of the way for kicking him straight up into the air, then jumping up into the air using air step before slamming him down, then landing on his stomach, similar to what he did to Todoroki. And then after this, Bakugo would still not be unconscious. He would definitely be phased, but still fighting. His fighting spirit would be a lot. It would take a lot to shake him, but what Deku's about to do would. As while Bakugo's on the floor, he would kick Bakugo in the side, in his liver, sending him flying off the platform, coughing up blood, and getting sent straight to Recovery Girl. The crowd would go insane as Midnight would announce the winner, Izuku Midoriya. Never mind. Izuku, whatever their last name is. Yeah. Okay, so now we get into the Hosu arc. So everything goes up to skiing. Ida gets paralyzed. Deku comes in with Todoroki, capturing Stain, but of course Night Eye would get all the credit for their work. And then there would be the Kamino All for One arc. So everyone would rush in on the building, Deku barging in with All Might and Endeavor by his sides, as he would send a flying kick. He would use his concentrated sweat, actually, to kick at Shigaraki, cutting his face and also sending him flying against the wall. The entire Villains Association was in a single bar. This was a great advantage for Izuku. Small spaces happened to be his combat choice. He would start firing rapid kicks at all the villains, and they would take them down 2 by 1. Literally, they would take down at least two villains every 2 seconds. So now, All for One would reveal himself. Before breaking out of the building, now we will get an All Might and All for One fight. All Might would be truly weakened, almost being sent to become his small form. His Small Might form, yeah. Is that what I should start calling it? Because that's kind of good, Small Might. But I digress. So, now, All Might and Gran Torino would be ganging up on All for One, but his tendrils would be too much for them to handle, and all the quirks and his usage of all these mini quirks would be so great. They could not even come to a conclusion how to fight against him. Then, Deku, seeing how much they're struggling, he would charge in, straight throwing a kick full power as hard as he's ever done before, after going at least 100 miles per hour in a dash, after he had been working on his speed a lot. He would go almost 100 miles per hour, sending All for One with a massive kick, almost taking his head off, quite literally breaking his neck, and then they would lock him up. once and for all. Izuku would be deemed #1 hero, after All Might would end up having to retire. And that is where I will be finishing this video. If you did make it this far, and so far I don't think anyone ever has in one of my videos. So if you did, make sure to hit that like button. And see ya.